Hi there, Paul Thomson here from Spitfire Audio. I'm very excited today to be showing you Vibrant Reeds, which is from our Abbey Road One film scoring selections. This one focuses on oboes and clarinets in octaves, and then there's also a few patches with a cor anglais included as well for extra kind of vibrancy. I'm going to play you a short demo which I've written to show how you'd use these sounds in context, but as ever, they focus on doing specific things incredibly well. So let's dive straight in. So the first legato, as you can hear, gives you a relatively solid sound. It's quite a pure, clean sound. And what happens when we add in the cor anglais? Well, let's take a look. So you've still got a fantastic dynamic range, but you've got that added kind of spiciness and piquancy that you get from adding in the cor anglais to the mix. This is a sound that is incredibly familiar. I'm going to show you how I've used it later, but it's something that you find very, very commonly in Hollywood film scores. There are loads of examples of this in, for example, E.T. and the Harry Potter scores, if you wanted to check out scores that you can actually open up and read and see how it's been used. But also just opening up another of the scores that I have in my collection, Jerry Goldsmith from Total Recall. Just in the very first opening part of the film, you'll see this orchestral pairing used there. So it's something that is a very, very useful and common sound. It's kind of the second most used orchestral blend in the woodwinds after the traditional flutes with a piccolo an octave up. Now let's have a look at the individual patches within this library. We've got the longs that are based on just the oboes and clarinets. So you can use this for that very kind of gentle, soft, very pure sound. It can also get quite solid and quite punchy. And if we look at the corresponding long, which we've called vibrant long, which is the version with the cor anglais in the mix, you'll hear that extra colour come in. So it's a fabulous, rich sound. Now we've also got fantastic staccatos built with the same ensembles. Now, in addition to those, and matching up with the mordents we have in the earlier library, we have these fabulous mordents with a minor and major second and a minor and major third. Mordent being also known as a shake. That kind of sound, which is, again, very familiar. It's really great to use as a kind of standalone thing. Or you can use it as part of a phrase, and I'm going to show you how I do that very shortly in my demo. Now, the last thing that I want to show you, because we've had a few questions about this, is at the mix page. So I'm going to go back to a clean staccato. Now I'm using mix 1 across my whole demo, and that's a great starting place if you're not sure how to use the different mix signals. This is Simon Rhodes giving us the kind of the best balance across the orchestra, the most natural sound in the room. Now you obviously have these other fantastic options with the vintage signals and also the pop signal, and I'm going to give you a quick example of some of those sounds. So that's our standard mix 1. Here's mix 2. Here's our first vintage signal. And our second. Really suit the sound of these reeds very, very nicely, those vintage signals, because they give a lovely kind of mellow, it's almost like a soft focus filter across the sound. If you want a maximum width and vibrancy, you've got the pop close. And then you've got a corresponding room signal that works with that pop close. And you can hear there that you've got the same type of sound, the same character of sound, but it gives you the depth, and you can blend those two to taste. Now, if you want to generate your own orchestral mix, we have our usual close trees, ambience, outriggers, plus the spill mics from the rest of the orchestra, and those sound like this. Now you can hear the different character of the trees there. Mix 1 is based on tree 1, mix 2 is built around tree 2. So as an example mix, but of course, you can change the balance to really be any kind of character you like. If we want to take the ambient out altogether and the spill and just get a mix that is much more focused towards the close mics. But you've still got the feeling of the room and the sound of those incredible players recorded through these beautiful microphones. Now let's dive into my demo piece and I'll show you how I'm using the library in context. So you'll see that I haven't done a total tidy up on this, by which I mean I've left some of the tracks that I've copied over. For example, here, I've copied the Vibrant Reeds legato, which I've played in first, up to the sparkling legato no Glock patch. And I've left the naming of that on the track so that you can see where I've moved things around and how I've doubled some of these sounds. I think it's really useful to hear not only the Vibrant Reeds on their own, but also to hear how I would use them with the other woodwind patches in Abbey Road One film scoring sections. So as an example there, as we're there, let's start here and let's solo these two tracks, and you can see how they sound playing together. You can see they're playing exactly the same thing. I haven't needed to go in and edit any of the MIDI CC data. So I've put this sparkling legato patch an octave up, and we've got the that doubling there. So on their own, they sound like this. Now, listening to these fast legato patches, you'll see that I've used the two different Vibrant Reeds legatos, but I've put them in thirds just to get an interesting sound here. So check this out. And you can see there in the MIDI data, there's the gap. Now, a lot of this stuff is played in. A lot of it is unquantized, as you can see. But I have occasionally just used a little bit of quantized to pull in. It's very rare that I'll quantize something really, really hard, but occasionally I'll use it maybe on 50 or 60% just to kind of pull things in a little bit tighter if I've played them a little bit too loosely. Now let's hear all of the vibrant reeds parts that I've used in this opening just on their own. Now, we've heard those legato parts there, so you know what's going on there. Here, I've used a combination of the mordents. So if we just look at the staccato on their own, you'll see where they appear here. Here, I'm just using them to accent the runs, just on the half beats, on the quavers. But actually, I'm using the mordents in between there. So you get this first part. And I'm using a different one, actually, a minor one there and a major one underneath, so that I've got the right chord, the right scale voicings within there. I just think that scattering little touches like this in amongst your part, you know, it could just all be on staccato, bum, 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 something like that. But actually putting these things in really catches your ear, adds to the interest and the kind of excitement of what you're writing. And they match up so beautifully that it's really, really easy to just pop these in. I'm putting them on separate tracks to make it really clear so that you can see what's going on in this demonstration. But actually, you could just key switch between them. There's lots of controls for moving between different articulations in the player engine. You can use velocity or all kinds of different things. So lots of control there so that you can make a playable patch if you want, so that you know when you do certain things, it's going to switch into a different mordant or something like that. Now I've done a similar thing here where I've just put a couple of these mordants hidden amongst these chords. If you just check out these two parts. So if you can hear there, it just almost sounds like one of the woodwind parts has a mordant in, and it's just tucked in inside those chords just to give it, again, a little bit more interest. And it's super simple. All you have to do is make sure that you're using the right one that will give you the correct scale notes for the chord that you're using. Now here at the end, I'm using a run, and what I've done here is I've split the run up into two parts that slightly overlap. So I've got the vibrant reeds, which have the kind of body and the kind of mid-range of the woodwind section. They start the run off, and then the sparkling legato takes over the run towards the end. So just check that out. And then there are a few other things. I've been totally shameless in here. With my usual kind of, approach to if it sounds good, it is good. So I'm not paying any attention to, I must only use one note on this patch because that means I've got three players or whatever the number is. But I'm actually just using them as sounds, and I'm painting with orchestral sound and really kind of playing in this sandbox. So check out what I've done here. I'll just add the last mordents here as well, which just add an extra fantastic bit to the end. So you can hear there, it's a great blend of the different woodwind sections. If I add in the flute mordents at the top, we've got the Wondrous Flutes. And just to remind you, this is the two flutes with a piccolo sat an octave up. And then just rather cheekily putting those three little stabs on the end. I'll just play those on their own. And I've used a clash in there as well, so it doesn't totally match. In contradicting my earlier advice of making sure that you're in the exact key, sometimes you just want it to sound like a burst of colour, and the best way to do that is to use non-scale notes as well. Now, one last thing to look at in the woodwinds is just how I'm passing the buck, I was going to say, backwards and forwards, just among the different types of kind of melody. So if we have a look at, I'm going to put this one in as well, just have a listen to how these, the kind of melody is passed around the woodwind section. And just to remind you, you can see where I've copied that up, but basically here we're in sparkling woodwinds, and at the top here we're in wondrous flutes, and then everything from here downwards, from track 11 downwards, is our vibrant reeds. So just follow along with this and have a listen. So I'm passing between the sections to get the different colours of the sounds, but also to get the different ranges, so that as you move through the range, the other instrument family more naturally takes over. And it just gives a kind of internal logic to what you're listening to, but it also gives you this lovely timbral shift as the part is going along. So I really like that, and it's just little touches like that that make it fun to do. So what else have I got in this track? Well, first of all, actually, just to give you a very quick look, I'm doing a little bit of tempo work. So I've gone through and I've put some little shifts just where it feels like, you know, things might speed up, where the conductor might speed up a little bit and then kind of pull everyone back a bit. And doing that really adds to the kind of musicality of the track as well. But what else have we got apart from these woodwinds? As I said, all of the woodwinds I'm using are from Abbey Road One. So moving down, we've got quite a significant amount of Abbey Road One percussion. Most of it Abbey Road One percussion. But also I've got the BBC SO for the triangle. There was just one little triangle moment here. Almost inaudible, but I liked it, having it just there, just doing a little ping in the background. And then we've got here another triangle, but a slightly different sounding one from the Spitfire percussion, and that gives me this early ting. So I like both of those. Everything else is fairly straightforward. So we've got our bass drums, we've got the soft boom every so often. So I really like having these three alternatives in Abbey Road One for the bottom end. You've got the sound of the most traditional bass drum. You've got the sound of this fantastic super low soft boom that really fills up the bottom end. And then you've got these really lovely Verdi bass drum, which has the loosest feel. To my mind, it's almost like you can hear it flapping in the room. So it's a subtly different thing from the soft boom. The soft boom is much more of a pure kind of cinematic underneath. This one makes me think much more of just gigantic orchestral bass drum going there. We've got the Piccolo Snare, so this is lovely and tight. And everything else is kind of, you know, as you might expect, toms, anvil, cymbals, piatti, tam-tam, all of the things that you can use. And sometimes the tam-tam is just doing a very gentle, soft thing that gives, you know, all of these little extra bits that you put in are going to give you a more 3D soundstage and a more kind of interest and variety and colour to your piece. Looking down into the tuned percussion, we've got the Abbey Road One timpani. So again, this solo this. And you can see from my velocity programming and the timing is, you know, there's no quantize going on here. I'm really playing it in as if I'm playing with two sticks and trying to do something that sounds very characteristically timpani-like. The harp gives us a few flashes of colour, and that's the Spitfire Harp. All of our kind of lovely stuff there. But also there are moments when it just does something very, very soft, like this bit here. And again, I'm being quite deliberately uneven and, or you might say rubato, but probably not really, because the rest of the orchestra is still forging ahead. But just really pulling it around so that it adds to the kind of human feel of the piece. We've got our kind of ticking clock with the Glock. You can see that's lovely and loose there. We've got the BBC SO for the vibes. And again, it's just doing something that's very, very gentle. And again, with the run that we had earlier, if I just solo that and go back up to here and solo these two legato parts as well, you'll see that these are all operating in concert. And then in the string section, we've got, let's just get the patches up so you can see what I'm using. We've got the high longs trems, which are going here, doing this lovely part. We've got our low longs. Again, these are from Orchestral Foundations. And then amongst that, I'm using things like these lovely pits. And we've got some low short parts. Now I've combined these here with the pizzicatos. So although this is an ensemble low strings patch, you can, if you're using it carefully, you can split it up into the sections. And yes, technically you've got the cellos mixed in there as well with the basses. So, but in reality, what you can create with this really doesn't sound that different to what you would create with a normal orchestra. But have a listen to this. And again, it's looking at the way that you're orchestrating in the parts is more important than being too worried about, oh, am I using two low strings ensemble parts together? Is that bad? Well, no. As long as you're voicing them correctly, it's going to sound good. Now, the only other thing that I've used down here for the runs are a combination of the leader from the BBC SO, the Spitfire solo strings, Virtuoso total performance patch, and then I've got my two sections from Spitfire chamber strings, which I love for runs. Because I had them up for doing the run, well, if I just play the run, let's have a listen. Just solo those. So you get the idea. But then I had them all up and I thought, oh, let me just put a melody in and see what that sounds like. And I've got the violas as well down the octave there. So if I just put these all up. Which is just a lovely, lovely sound. And then you can see here at the end, we've got this run. And if I add back in my vibrant reeds, let's pop the sparkling legato in as well. And just play all of those. And again, we've got that kind of split. So you start with a bit of a kind of gap between them, and that closes as you get towards the top. So that's a great doubling as well. Works really nicely. And as you can hear, those vibrant reeds patches are really, really agile and work really well in the context with the strings as well. All of these things are characteristic sounds of orchestration that you're going to be very familiar with from having heard them. Obviously they're traditional orchestration. It's very, very common to have the oboes and the clarinets in octaves. There are lots of different combinations you can use with oboes and clarinets, but that's a really, really solid one because you're matching them timbrally, the range of the oboe up the octave and the range of the clarinet. They just match really nicely when you have them with the oboes an octave above. So let's just play down one more time to finish off, and I'll try and solo a few more of these parts out visually so that you can see again what's going on. So I hope that's been useful, not only to hear what's in Vibrant Reeds and to hear that sound that this does so well, giving us that mid-range of the woodwind section and that sound that is instantly familiar from many, many film scores, but also to hear how you might use it in combination with some of the other selections, particularly the woodwinds ones, but also with Orchestral Foundations, and how all of these sounds are locking together so beautifully. They've been mixed so fantastically and recorded fantastically by Simon Rhodes. They really lock together absolutely perfectly and give you the sound of Studio One in Abbey Road, which again is such a familiar sound from film scoring. So there we go, my little piece, Moonlit Forest Pursuit. I hope you enjoyed that and found some useful tips and tricks in there. Thank you very much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye-bye.